Hello, welcome to episode 15 of the Brand Spotlight. We are here with Zach Frantz of Wildland Coffee. We are about to start. I just want to welcome all the guests. We are streaming live on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn Live. So we're all here. I did forget to tell you to click on your name and write Wildland on the bottom so everyone sees that you're with Wildland. Sorry for doing this live. You saw a first glitch.
Yeah.
That's what sometimes happens when we are on live.
Oh,
We You just click on the bottom. You figured that out?
there we go. Got it.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. I apologize for that. So we're gonna talk all about Wildland. And in general, the brand spotlight, we talk to brands all about the brand, what they're uniquely bringing to the marketplace, how they can be found, and then we transition to the origin story, how they started, why they started, all the way to their current go-to-market strategy. We try to do this all in a very conversational format to keep it moving and keep it fun. I do usually talk about our agency. This stream has actually been an outgrowth of the agency. I run an agency I've been building up the last few years called Brands Connect. That's brands with a Z, BRANDZ, and we focus on crafting custom and boutique marketing campaigns that are custom tailored to the brands. This episode will also be available as an audio podcast on the replay, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and wherever you listen to podcasts. I guess we are ready to start. Without further ado, welcome, Zach.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Sure. So we'll get right in. The first question we usually ask is, in a sentence or two, how would you define your brand?
I would define my brand as it's actually kind of a funny question. There's so many ways to take that question. It's like, do you take it literally or figuratively? So literally, it's a coffee company. Figuratively, I would define it as a brand that helps people live different and inspires people to live different. And what I mean by that is my brand is all about being outdoors, enjoying the outdoors. And for me, my business is it's like a creative outlet. And when I think of living different, I think of kind of doing things my own way. And so that's how I would define it, both literally and figuratively.
So literally, you defined it as a coffee brand. Figuratively, there was a lot more explanation, a lot more built into a certain specific lifestyle.
Yeah. So my vision is to be the number one coffee brand for the outdoor enthusiast, and everything that I do is centered around serving the outdoor enthusiast and making their coffee, morning, afternoon, night coffee, whatever it might be, making that coffee experience as seamless as possible. But really, through the imagery and through the branding, I want people to, when you look at a picture of the mountains or the desert, I guess, whatever outdoor scenery that you prefer. When I look at those things, I long to be in those settings. I long to be in the mountains or, on a lake or something. And I want to live a lifestyle that allows me to enjoy those types of activities. And so that's what I want to kind of inspire. And those are the feelings that I want my customers or prospective customers to be feeling when they think of my brand.
So you're after a feeling.
Yeah. Feeling of kind of freedom and adventure, I guess you could say.
Okay. I want to get back to what you originally said. Do you consider yourself more of a coffee company or more of an outdoorsy company, or is your specialty being that specific hybrid?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the hybrid of those two things. And I don't feel like I really fit into. So today's CPG world is very much focused around better for you. My product isn't necessarily better for you, and it's not worse for you. It's coffee. I would say my product it's more convenient for you. and my consumer is the outdoor consumer. So I'm kind of in both of these worlds, although I would say I'm more in the outdoor world than I am in the traditional CPG world.
Cool. I want to get a little bit deeper into your product. What makes a coffee an outdoor coffee? I can buy coffee anywhere. There's thousands of brands sprouting up. Those who've been following my social media. Earlier this week, I was at a coffee fest, a trade show. Tons of coffee companies in all different shapes or form. Everyone
Yeah.
obviously is claiming that they're bringing something unique to the marketplace. Why is your coffee? Why should your coffee be considered the number one for the outdoors?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think this is a very common thing amongst all coffee brands or even food brands. Food is very brand based. Now, there's obviously some differences with ingredients and or lack of ingredients sometimes, but um, at, at the end of the day, like there's so many different options that, in my opinion, you need to brand yourself for a very specific person. Um, it's too difficult to make in my opinion. I know some people would disagree with this. I, I I think it's too difficult to make a brand for everyone, and you're going to get crushed by the Nestle's of the world that have mass market products. And so um, the reason that I'm my vision is to be, and the reason I think I'm the number one coffee brand for the outdoor consumer is one, it's because of the format. When you're outdoors, using things like a French press or a pour over, it can be pretty cumbersome and frustrating to clean those things. And then instant coffee, while it is very convenient, doesn't taste that great. And so when I'm at trade shows or I'm talking to customers, what I hear is that customers, they use those things, but they don't love it. They use it because they don't know what else to do. And they see my product, they try my product, and they're like, oh, this is better. It's typically better than what they're currently using in terms of the flavor, and it's so much easier. So there's definitely like a big format difference. But then it is also my focus on those people. Like most coffee brands are run by coffee, and I say this in like a nice way, like they're run by coffee nerds, and coffee nerds just want to serve you the best cup of coffee, and that's what they're focused on. Um, my coffee is actually, it's really really fucking good. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this, um, but that's not like the main thing is the feeling and the convenience and the overall experience, and then we surprise people with the quality.
Cool. That was a great overview. We didn't get into the format of your coffee. How is your coffee different than the pour over and or the instant mix?
Yeah, good. I forgot to mention that. So
No worries.
we basically put coffee into what is kind of traditionally thought of as a tea bag. You could call it a coffee bag, but it's coffee that you steep. Um, it is bigger than a tea bag. We put 16 grams in a corn fiber compostable, basically tea bag, and you steep the coffee, and you get a French press quality experience, but again with the ease of tea.
So it's really, it wouldn't be considered based on what you told me before. It doesn't sound like it's one of the third, fourth wave roasters. I don't know if we're up to fourth wave. Yeah, those are really run by the coffee. You use the term coffee nerds, people who are obsessed with coffee, people who love coffee, and they're great. Those are great experiences. They're essentially a fine dining experience. What you
Yeah.
did is in my home, on my hike, outdoor, I can take a tea bag and as just as convenient as a instant package, but a lot higher quality.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to say something that's going to like kind of shock you. The roaster that I work with, so as a company, Wildland we do not roast. Um, the roaster, the guy that does do our roasting, he recently took 11th in the world championships, in the world roasting championships. Like he was literally named the 11th best roaster in the world. And he was named in May, he was named the best roaster in the country. Um, I'm not going to like say his name, but if anyone is like listening to this, you can go look it up. Um, so it is actually roasted by one of those people that like would never use my product, because they are obsessed with giving you the best cup of coffee in the world, and they can kind of claim that they do that. Um, but I'm taking their amazing, well, they roast specifically for me as part of their operation, right? But I take the coffee that they roast for me and I put it in a very convenient package.
Got you. And do they do a specific roast so that it's more I don't have the right word off my tongue, but it makes sense to use for a outdoorsy, longer term shelf life, etc.
So it's a really good question. So shelf life actually has nothing to do with the roast. So there's we can kind of think of it as like three phases. When coffee is green, actually, let me even back up. So coffee actually comes in a cherry. So coffee is grown on trees, and it's basically, it looks like a little cherry. Um, what the farmers do is they pick these cherries and they put them through a machine that basically takes away the outer husk, and then in the middle of the cherry there's two coffee beans. So what you see, it like one coffee bean, there's two coffee beans in one cherry. Um, at that point, they're like basically dried. There's a lot of different ways to dry coffee. That's what we call green coffee, because the coffee is literally green. When coffee is in a green kind of state, it'll stay good for 12 to 18 months, and you can still use it after that. But like it kind of after 12 to 18 months, it starts to go stale basically. Um, Once you roast coffee, if it is exposed to air, it'll go stale in about 3 or 4 weeks. Plenty of people drink, the vast majority of Americans, I promise you, are drinking stale coffee. Okay. Um, Once you grind coffee, it goes stale in probably 3 to 5 days, because of an oxidation process. What we do, and what many coffee companies do, is you when you're in the manufacturing process, we use nitrogen to expel the oxygen from the package. And this will, and in our package, the specific packaging that we use, it'll keep it fresh. We guarantee it for 12 months. Truthfully, it would probably go to 24 months. And then oxygen starts to leak into the package, and the product would go stale at that point. A lot of coffee companies do this, or they use packages that have like a one-way seal valve. You may have seen this on the back of a package at the grocery store, where they like compress it, the oxygen leaves, but it can't get back in, and that way you have fresh coffee for a longer period of time.
Yeah, I've seen those seal bags. I've seen a lot of people market that they have nitrogen, especially in the cold brew. I don't know what if there's a different
Well,
reason for that.
so cold brew, when you're putting nitrogen into a drink, it I honestly think it's kind of a marketing gimmick, if I'm being honest with you. But like when you first, like, if you're at Starbucks and like they pour you the nitrogen cold brew, it kind of goes to the top. It's kind of like nitrogen beer. Like it tastes a little
It's an
different.
experience.
It's a little bit of a different experience. That's different than using nitrogen for just for like beans. Because with the beans, it keeps it fresh. In my opinion, with an actual drink, I think it's more of it's more of the way it looks, and people think it's better. I've had a lot of nitrogen cold brews, and after the nitrogen goes to the top and leaves the coffee, it's the exact same coffee, compared to the one that didn't have the nitrogen. But some people like that, I guess.
So I like it that there's already people doing nitrogen to preserve the coffee, but what you did differently is you did single serve packaging with nitrogen. The question I have for you is there any difference in the roasting process between essentially it seems like almost like an instant coffee. What's the difference between an instant coffee and your coffee?
So instant coffee is actually freeze dried. So what they do is, and a lot of instant coffee, is a Robusta bean. So there's two species of coffees. There's Arabica, which is what most people drink, and then there's Robusta. Robusta tends to be lower quality and it's much cheaper. So most instant coffees, because you're freeze drying it, like no one's expecting a high quality coffee. So they use cheaper beans. That's also why instant coffee tends to be cheaper, is because they're using less expensive beans. So what they do is they roast it, they grind it, and then they put it through a freeze drying process. And that way it basically dissolves into the water when you pour it in. So that's why like most instant coffees are not very good, is because they're using lower quality beans, they're doing the freeze drying process, and people who are buying instant coffee, they're not expecting good coffee. They're expecting very convenient and very cheap coffee. Whereas we just roast. So we roast. 4 to 5 days later, we grind, and then 24 hours after that, we package.
What? Why hasn't? What are you doing differently than the regular roasting? If I take coffee from a local roaster, put it into a tea bag, what's going to happen?
I mean, nothing. I mean, well, you could do it. Like,
I could do it. So you're just packaging it for that. You're packaging it for convenience. I'm just wondering how come I've never heard of such a thing before.
um,
Usually people will put it through a French press, they'll put it through a drip, they'll do something else. I never heard of people just seeping. The only time I heard of people seeping coffee without any process is for cold brew.
yeah. So I've got some theories like on why this is. So it's actually been bigger. Like it's kind of been a thing in Asia for a long time, maybe 30 years or so. Folgers actually has a tea bag style product that they've done for maybe 40 years, for quite a long time. Um, Folgers is obviously not very good coffee, and I don't know if I've ever seen a Folgers ad ever. So that also could be a reason there. Um,
I'm
so
sure they serve
coffee,
a purpose. They're welcome on my show too.
yeah, if no, for sure. So coffee in America is dominated by two camps of people. It's dominated by the local coffee shop that is just, their messaging is we're gonna try to give you the A+ cup of coffee, right? Um, and then so there's one side, and those people tend to like look down on this method. Like when I've talked to people who are like, even my coffee roaster, they're like, we would never do this. Like, and they're great guys, like, but they're just like, we would never do this. Um, and then on the other side, it's dominated by Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and whoever, right? And they're so big, like they don't they don't care. Like it's just it's because there's no inherent demand for it. They have no incentive to push this style of product. So you kind of have people in like two very different camps that, for almost opposite reasons, wouldn't do this. Like for the big companies, it's like maybe a little bit too expensive, and their average consumer like wouldn't pay for it. And then on the other side is like those the people that work in the corner coffee shops, they kind of look down on it. And then when I talk to people, most people say exactly what you just said. They're like, I've never seen this before. They're always a little skeptical, like always skeptical. But then when they try it, they're like, oh shit, this is usually better than what they're like, oh, this is better than what I drink at home. So, I mean, a lot of things nothing ever existed before it did. Nothing ever got big before it did. And, I think Wildland's going to be the first company to make this a very big and well-known format.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're doing is not necessarily it's not necessarily so it's not something that wasn't able to exist before. It has a lot more to do with the fact that the market's ready for this.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
I
they
mean,
want, yeah.
yeah, it's just, it's no company has come along and said, you know what, I'm going to make this a thing. The technology has existed for a long time. You know, I mean, if we just think about like the actual machines that do this, it's a vertical fill, form, and seal. So vertical, obviously being vertical, it fills it. It form. So it like forms the tea bag, it fills it, and it seals it. Like in the food world, that's a very basic thing. It's how chip bags are filled. It's how any bag is basically filled using a vertical form, fill, and seal bag. Um, and then we have the nitrogen process, which again has been a thing in the food industry for a very, very long time. So the technology is not new. And there's Folgers has done it for a long time. It's been big in other countries for a long time. But just people that are like doing the whole coffee thing, they just want to give you the A+ cup of coffee from their pour over. And I just think no one's ever come along and been like, this is the perfect product for this market. I'm not saying I'm like the Steve Jobs of coffee, but I think
Maybe
it
the
should have been done a
Steve.
long time ago. It's so obvious. Like it's so obvious that I'm not like, I don't think I'm a genius for doing it, but it's like so obvious. It's weird that no one said I'm going to make this for the outdoor market. It's honestly, it's bizarre to me.
How before we transition to I still want to talk about more about the product before we transition
Yeah.
to the origin story. But the question that's just bursting out of me is, and you seem to answer it with your body language. How surprised were you that nobody ever did it? How long did you actually look and like, really nobody's done this before?
This is the origin story. So I'll just answer that question. So, um, it was in probably like 2017. I was doing, and I still do a lot of camping, and I was using French press, and I was sick of using a French press and cleaning it. I thought it was like, this is a pain in the ass. And I had never seen a good solution for it except for instant coffee, and it seemed so obvious. I was like, okay, tea's in a tea bag, you steep it. Coffee's coffee, like you just steep coffee because it's fundamentally the same process as a French press or pour, where you're moving water through coffee, right? That's it. Um, and again, I had never seen it before. So in my head, I was like, I'm like Steve Jobs. Like I'm the smartest person in the world. So I went home and I Googled it. In my head, I described it as steeped coffee. That's how I described it in my head. I went home and I Googled steeped coffee, and there was and is a company called Steeped Coffee. They did a Kickstarter like in 2017 or 2016. And so I was like, oh man, like someone's already doing it. Like I was like a little bit deflated. And I think at the time, I think they were like the only company. Maybe there was maybe a few others. So I bought the product and I bought the other competitors too. And I just thought the coffee was like, I was like, it's fine. But for someone to switch a habit, the new thing has to be good. Like it can't just be okay. So that was the first thing that I noticed. The second thing, I think this is the more important thing, because taste is so subjective, right? And a lot of people switch to something that's more convenient, even if it's maybe just as good because it's more convenient. So the second thing was that these other coffee companies were branding themselves as just like there was no specific person. It was just like, here's a coffee company. Like it was just like, it's just a coffee company, right? And I thought that was the biggest miss, because as I think about consumer behavior, trying to get someone to move off of like a morning routine, especially coffee, because coffee's so ritualistic, it's like you're just like never going to do it. Like you're not going to do it in a big way unless you've got millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I felt like, especially at the price point that these products were at, I felt like getting, I was just thinking to myself, like, what's the best market or what's the best use case for this product? And me being an outdoors person, frustrated with that outdoor use case, I was like, well, if I brand this for the outdoor person and I make it for, very specifically for that person, I can beat the competition by being more specific and more targeted. So that's my vision, is to be the number one coffee brand for the outdoor enthusiasts. And so that's the origin story. And that was, to answer your last question, like, was I surprised? I was surprised that there was someone else that did it because I had never seen it before. But I don't humbly, I don't think they're going after the right market, and I don't think I think other companies misunderstand consumer behavior, and maybe I'm totally wrong. Like, I'm open to that too, but my experience tells me I'm not.
Okay. I have a few follow-up questions on the origin story, but before that, I want to get back into the product just
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah.
Is there any difference in terms of taste between your coffee and a French press, let's say? Does the process change the taste? French press is essentially a little bit of force, a little bit of gravity, pushing water through it, and also is it hot? Is it specifically hot or also cold?
So you can do both cold brew and hot brew. Um, it's a little hard to answer your question because people make French presses in my product. Everyone makes it a little bit different, right? It's like it's like if we both make cookies with the same recipe, is it going to be different or the same? Maybe different, maybe the same. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So what I'll say is, like, when I talk to customers, when I give them samples, a lot of times people say this is just as good as what I make at home. So a lot of people say it's even better because, again, the quality of their coffee, the quality of my roaster. Um, but it does kind of depend on how you make your French press coffee, or how you make your drip coffee, and how you make Wildland. Like, it is very dependent on on how the person makes it.
And how long does it take to steep the how long does it take for the coffee to be ready? Especially, hot obviously is going to take a little bit shorter time, but it's not instant coffee. Instant coffee
Yeah.
is made that you just put the hot water in, and within as soon as the water hits, it essentially dissolves into the whole mixture. Whereas this is steeping process is usually a little bit different. So
Yeah.
how long does that take?
So we recommend that people will steep for 8 minutes, and we've done tests with, because there's a unit of measurement called TDS, total dissolved salt, or total dissolved solids, solubles. It's basically a measure of how much coffee is in the water. Um, and we found that at 8 minutes, there starts to be diminishing returns. And so we recommend people use 8 ounces of water, so 1 cup, and you steep for 8 minutes. But honestly, like, if you keep steeping it, it'll keep getting stronger. And unlike tea that will start to get bitter, I mean, at some point the coffee will get bitter, but we're talking like 30 minutes. An amount of time that's unreasonable. Um, in terms of making cold brew, so the way you make cold brew in general is you put it in cold water, you let it steep for 12 to 18 hours, and that's the same with Wildland. You put it in a cup, and you can typically get more coffee from the cold brew method just because of how long it steeps than you can with the hot method. Yeah, you put it in like a 12 or 16 ounce cup, put it in the refrigerator. The next day you come back, you're good to go.
Got you. So that would be more for a long-term process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is standard with cold brew.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very cool. What I also like about it is something you alluded to about your story. Even though a big part of your market is the outdoors, one of the initial things that really got you to get into this was the fact that you did not want to clean up after your French press. It sounds like even if you're not an outdoorsy person, and you want a quality cup of coffee without the mess, this is a great way to get quality coffee without the mess. You just put the tea bag in, you put a timer for 8 minutes, and you're good to go. Great addition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that. So we definitely have customers that use the product more often. And part of my strategy for going after the outdoors kind of community is one, like, I can speak to very acute problems, right? And my customer will know that I understand them. But the idea is once they try the product in an outdoor setting, then they're like, oh, this is really convenient. So when I'm at home and I don't want to like, use a French press, or I'm on the go, or, maybe I'm in a setting where like you can get hot water almost anywhere. Then they'll start to use my product in other settings. The other thing, this is again kind of going with like the consumer psychology, is when you are making coffee at home, regardless of what the method is, French press, pour over, espresso, Keurig, Nespresso, any of those methods, um, consumers have a pretty like low, or I guess a high sensitivity to price, which is kind of funny because it's like you leave the house and you'll spend $5 at Starbucks, but like at home, the most you can pay, the most that average consumer will pay for at-home coffee is probably $1, right? There's like Nespressos, I think, are $1, but most K cups are 50 to 75 cents. People don't even quantify how much coffee costs if it's from a bag, if it's like a whole bean, right? You could be 10 cents, 5 cents maybe, if you get like really cheap stuff. So there's a high price sensitivity at home. And so what I decided to do, to incentivize more regular usage of my product, is the more someone buys, the lower the price is. So I have a 4-count sampler pack, and this includes shipping. It's $10, so $2.50 a cup. It's actually $9.99. On the far end of the spectrum, I sell an 80 pack at $1.25 a cup. So $100 will get you 80 pouches. And so I'm really trying to incentivize people who like the product to buy a big pack and to use it more often. But for people who just want to use it, when they go camping 5 or 6 times a year, yeah, you're going to pay a lot more. But people are willing to pay more when you're camping because it's like a specialized thing. So depending on how people want to use my product, there's different price points.
So you have good bulk discounting, essentially.
Yeah, probably too good of a bulk discount, if I'm being honest. But I'm willing to sacrifice my margin because on the whole, I make more of an absolute dollar amount. And if I can get people using my product more, that's good for me, and that's it's good for the consumer because they get a better price. So I'm willing to make that trade-off for a more consistent usage.
That makes sense. And I know we spoke about this before, but you did have an offer for our listeners, an affiliate deal, so it does help the show too. So this is a great way. You're selling you're selling me on it. Now let's sell the audience. This is a great way to enjoy your morning coffee, whether camping, whether not. How can they access that what is that discount, and how can they access it?
Yeah, so it's Spotlight 15, and they can access that at our website. So it's www.wildlandcoffee.co, not .com, .co, and it's Spotlight, one word, 15 for 15% off.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that discount code. Now that we know so much about the product, I want to transition more to the origin story, the go-to-market strategy, how you started, where you're at today. You already started talking about it, so I'll ask some questions off the bat about that. What you did mention, you did try other products. You found the Kickstarter. What was your experience there?
When I tried them, like I thought they were fine. Like it wasn't the worst coffee I've ever had. It wasn't the best. And so I wasn't excited about it. And again, for someone to switch to something new, you got to be excited about it. Like no one's gonna. I think this is like one of the things that this is a slight departure from the question, but I think this is like one of the biggest reasons why like plant-based meat is struggling. Like they're trying to get you on the taste and the environmentally friendliness, or on animal rights. The problem is that the shit doesn't taste that good. So like people aren't going to switch to something that doesn't taste as good just because it's convenient. um, or just because it's like good for the environment. Like if you're gonna ask someone to switch and do something that they're not used to, it has to taste good. Period. End of story. And I thought the coffee was kind of flat. It didn't have a lot of depth to it, and so I thought I could do better.
It also came in a tea bag?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. Interesting. Okay. I know that there's a few different directions. You can start. I'll ask you both about both of them, and you can answer in whichever order makes more sense. But I noticed we actually was became acquainted to you through LinkedIn. I noticed that you're very, very active on LinkedIn. So I'm curious about that LinkedIn journey, and also how you came from product idea, which you wanted for yourself, to branding it as an outdoor product.
Yeah. So LinkedIn journey. When did I start I don't know. I feel like I've been like pretty active on LinkedIn for the last 5 years or so. Um, I can't remember like when I really got started. But I can say like I started. So this is actually my second coffee business. So I'll tell. Okay, so I started my first business in October of 2019 with a business partner. It was basically the same product, just a different brand. And so I started in October of 2019. I ended up leaving that business in November of 2020. It just didn't work out between my business partner and I. And then I started Wildland in March of 2021. Again, because I wanted to execute on my original vision from that first company. So I bring that up because I think it was when I started that first coffee company that I started to get like much more active and basically just kind of doing like the Gary Vee thing, just like documenting my journey as a founder. Um, and I don't have like a super like well thought out strategy for LinkedIn. Maybe I should have a more well thought out strategy. What I want for my LinkedIn is I want people who follow me to like feel like they have an inside scoop on what's going on with my company. Like I just want people to come along for the journey. Um, know what the ups are, know what the downs are, and like that's it. Like I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. I guess sometimes I'm trying to sell my coffee, but I'm not trying to sell a course. I'm not trying to sell a consulting service. It's just like, here's what's going on. And if you think it's cool and you want to follow along, awesome. If not, that's fine too. Um, yeah, LinkedIn it's been great for me. Like I've made friends. Um, I've, acquired people who I consider mentors now. I have sold coffee because of it. I'm actually in a conversation with a pretty big retailer right now because of it. So yeah, I would recommend that everyone, start telling some story, whatever journey they're on, just start documenting that journey.
Yeah, I see you're very, very open and transparent on LinkedIn. You've talked about your sales numbers, how much you're trying to get, how negative you are, how leaving your job, all sorts of stuff. Do you, even though you said you don't have a strategy, do you think maybe looking back and being a little introspective, do you think there's something that you're consistently doing that's building your brand on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would say like if there was a strategy, like it's transparency. Like I'm in general, I'm a very transparent person. Like I'm not like the way I am right now is how I am with my friends. It's how I am with my wife. It's how I am with my parents, with my dog. It's like you're gonna get the same Zach in any situation. And it's hard for me to like, because I'm always the same person, I can't just like turn it off. Like I can't be a different person on LinkedIn than I am in my real life. Like I'm just Zach is Zach, and that you're gonna get the good and the bad. Um, which I think sometimes annoys my wife. She'd prefer just the good, uh, which makes sense because like the bad parts of Zach can be kind of frustrating sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I guess like if I was to put like a word on like what my strategy is, it's just like I'm just transparent, and that is honestly some like if I if there's one piece of feedback I get the most, it's people say they love the transparency. Is like I'm not trying to put on some show. Like it's just yo, like this is what's going on. Like that's it.
I'm gonna press a little more into this. Transparency and authenticity are buzzwords. That's on one hand. A lot of people claim to be transparent or authentic, and it's hard to really gauge. It's hard to really quantify. It's almost a feeling. It's a perception. That's on one end of the angle. Also, there is a balance between both transparency and both not airing your dirty laundry and privacy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's obviously things I don't share, right? And sometimes I do think I might share too much, if I'm being honest. But again, like this is how I am in my real life. Like, so I think any strategy is going to come with good and bad. So let's take like the total opposite approach is where everything is like ultra curated, right? And you're like everything you say and um, everything you write and post and talk about is like really like filtered. So like the positive is like you're going to be able to portray the exact message and persona that you want, right? You're going to be able to control everything. Maybe you can't control everything, but like you could basically control how people read you and perceive you, right? Um, there's definitely positives to that. Like you can kind of, in a way, predict the outcome of a post or predict the outcome of a certain interaction, right? The negative is like people at some point they're going to figure out that like you're not transparent and you're not authentic, and like that's going to come back to bite you in the ass at some point. So the question that you have to ask yourself is like, is what's greater, the positive or the negative, right? And if you think like having an ultra curated persona is more positive than people thinking that you're authentic and transparent and people kind of knowing that you're like kind of bullshit, or that you're like everything's very filtered, you just have to make a judgment call. Like, and I know a lot of people on LinkedIn that like have made the judgment call that like they don't tell me this, but you can tell by the way that they are like that they would prefer to have this persona. I make the judgment call that I would rather people know that like this is the real Zach and this is me, and like I'm not gonna BS you, and like it's just this is Zach. Has my transparency bit me in the ass? Maybe not from LinkedIn, but there have been times in my personal life where like maybe I overshared, and actually no, I can definitely think of times where like I overshared and like it kind of bit me in the ass. Yeah, like it has. But I would say like overall, it's been a win because people know that like Zach is Zach, and I'm like a real person, and I get a lot of feedback. People love the transparency, so I do think it differentiates me as a person and as a brand, because I get people like will message me on Instagram, like my business, and they'll say, hey, like, or like when I meet people in person, like at events, like, oh, I've been following you on Instagram for a long time. Like I love the transparency. So I do think it is a differentiator.
That's fascinating. I'm going to press a little bit more into this. Do you think you could afford to do this because you've developed a quality brand? So you could focus so much on the brand and the development of that brand, and you're basically promoting your brand as opposed to your business experience. And the reason why I ask this is I see online a lot of times people who might be good marketers, they think they also have to show people that they're good at branding. People who have a good product, they think that a good product means that they're also good at every other part of the business development cycle. If they're doing a certain amount of cash, they look at that as a as a validation for their product, and it's not necessarily true. In fact, they might not have any retention because of their price point versus their quality.
Well, I actually okay. So there's a couple of answers to this question, and I hope I'm answering the question. Um, so I think I've built. I mean, I guess we'll talk about LinkedIn and Instagram kind of as one, because the way that I conduct my Instagram is very similar to the way I conduct my LinkedIn. There's obviously differences, but I do post, not in the last few weeks, but in general, like I do post a lot about just like how the business is doing. So let's just, for all intents and purposes, let's just say that we're going to talk about Instagram and LinkedIn as the same thing. I think I've built a brand on transparency. I don't think I can be transparent because I built a brand. So I hope I'm answering the question. I think it's because I'm transparent that is the brand. But I also think that there's there's different levels as a brand gets bigger. Like now I'll talk about Instagram specifically. In 1 or 2 years, I'm not going to conduct my Instagram the way that I do now. Because I think when you're smaller, I think people, especially in America, where like entrepreneurship is like such a respected like thing to do. I think people like want to see the behind the scenes of a young company and as you're starting it. I think when you're like bigger, like, I mean, maybe on TikTok, but like on Instagram, like I don't think that like shit necessarily flies when you're bigger. So like, I think it's cool when you're small. When you're big, I don't think it's as cool. But I will conduct my LinkedIn the same in 5 years as I do today, 100%.
I'm gonna press. I'm gonna repeat what I asked before, but a
Yeah.
little bit differently.
Okay.
Do you think that your vulnerability, authenticity, etc., that helps? Obviously, it helps it for its own sake, and it helps your personal brand. But do you think it helps your product brand, so to speak, Wildland, uh, because you're not sharing that your product's a bad product? You're actually sharing what you did to turn it into an amazing product. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. I think people again. Okay, especially when you're young, a young company. I think people buy because they want to, in part because they want to support you, right? They're like, I like the mission. I like the founder. Especially, I mean, but let's just be honest. Like whether it's my company or anyone else, like there's a million options, right? It's not like I'm not like in the consumer's eyes. There's obviously differences. I see the differences between me and the competitors, but like in the consumer's eyes, like Wyland might be like a little bit different, right? But like people are busy, people got shit going on, right? So I think because of my transparency, I think people are attracted to the brand because they want to support, in part because they want to support Zach, right? They want to get behind what I'm trying to do, and I do think my transparency is part of it because they know I'm working hard to make a great company, and I'm here to make a great product for them, and I'm not just trying to like get rich. Like I'm trying to like do something cool and genuine. So I do think in a way like my transparency and honesty does help my sales. And then when I do talk about my product and I ask my LinkedIn community to like go buy my stuff, like I'm not always asking for them to go buy things. It's like I'm not about asking my connection to go buy my stuff. It's like if I do it, it's because I really need them to go buy it. It's because I need the money.
But you are showing that you are working hard to develop an amazing product.
Yeah, like that's part of it. Is like, you know, I've had a lot of posts about people messing up like making my product, and I asked my LinkedIn community like, how would you solve this problem? I remember a very specific post where I got like a bunch of responses that actually like informed my packaging, because there's a subset of people that mess up the creation of the product, or not the creation, the preparation of the product. So yeah, I mean, I am trying to make a great product, and um, I've had a lot of posts about some of the frustrations and the successes and of that process.
Wow. So you spoke a lot about the LinkedIn journey, a lot about the social media, just really focusing on your authenticity and your transparency. That was the word. Your transparency and authenticity within the space to really build up a personal brand, which then allowed people to give your product a try. Once they give your product a try, hopefully they become recurring customers. That's always the hope. We didn't get so much into at what point did you decide to focus on the outdoors market, and how that transition. And I would imagine that there is a challenge with outdoors, being that hot water is available a lot of places, but not everywhere.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty easy for me to focus on the outdoors because that's where I wanted the product. And I'm a big believer that to have a successful company, you have to be your own consumer. Because if you're not, like, it's kind of obvious if you're not your own consumer. When you're like, and yet you can like learn those things. But like my biggest segment are what I would call car campers. And I'm a car camper. So like I can tell people my experience, right? And it's obvious, like, because I'm part of the community. Um, so to go after the outdoor market was like it was like the only way to do it, because one, that's who I am, but also that's where I think the product does the best. That's where there's the most friction with making coffee, is in the outdoors. In any other setting, there's a there's less friction, right? If you're at home, less friction. If you're driving to work, there's Starbucks. Have fun competing with Starbucks. You're gonna lose. It is what it is. If you're at an airport, there's Starbucks. If you're right, I mean, in any other setting, it's like there are other options that I don't necessarily particularly want to compete with. Um, there was What was the second question? Sorry.
So I asked why you chose to go outdoors,
Yep.
and I
What
don't.
was that?
I'll have to play rewind, but in
All
the
right.
meantime, we'll go on to the next thing.
All right. All right.
What and at what point did you decide to call it? How did the name Wildland come to be?
My wife came up with the name, actually.
Oh, cool. Did it take a while to settle with different names?
Yeah, there was like sheets and sheets of paper. The the thing with coffee companies is like you kind of have to put a one word with coffee. And there are so many coffee shops. I mean, there's thousands, like probably 10 to 15,000 in the country. So like there's a lot of names already taken. Like it's kind of hard to find a name that hasn't been taken that's actually good. So what we did was like we had a few hundred names. Um, and dude, I mean, there's like agents, there's like companies that are like literally all they do is they'll make you a good name. Um, so we had like hundreds and hundreds of names. We narrowed it down to I think three, and then we sent three to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and we said, hey, like legally, like which is the best one? And he said Wildland had the best chance of being trademarked, which it ended up getting trademarked. Um, and we went with that name. But like we thought of like a bunch of words that were associated with the outdoors, and then we looked up like similar words and like synonyms, and it's like it's just like a big tree. It's like you do one thing and then you go the other way, and then you look at that word, and then you find synonyms for that word, and yeah.
In the meantime, the other question came back. What do you do about hot water, being that it's yeah.
Yeah, so that one's actually really easy. Um, I mean, if you're camping, first of all, you have water, so it's not
Not
a
hot
problem.
water?
Well, no. So everyone either brings a stove, or I guess I shouldn't say everyone. I don't want to speak for everyone. Vast majority of people are either going to bring a stove, or there's these things. I mean, one of the big brands, it's called a Jetboil. Jetboil is kind of used like Google now, but Jetboil is a brand, and they make this like it's like a little stove. It's like a one burner stove, and it connects to a small propane tank, and it heats your water up in this like 1 liter, basically, kind of like a little pot. Basically, it heats it up in like 5 minutes, maybe even less. So um, those are really common. So getting hot water when you're camping is like a non-issue.
It's part of the culture by this point, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, and people want like you kind of need hot water for a lot of meals, and yeah, it's really commonplace.
Were there other industries you were looking, or other cultures that you're looking to tap into before you settled on outdoor, or it was right
No,
away?
right away. There was never a question.
How much of your personal lifestyle has to do involves with the outdoors culture?
Um, when I was so growing up, I would go camping quite a bit. Well, I say quite a bit, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. That's quite a bit for most people. With my mom. So like from a very early age, we were going camping. And then in college, it kind of went away because I was too busy partying and drinking. Um, and then I moved to Salt Lake, and probably for the first maybe 5 years I lived in Salt Lake, I didn't really like explore the outdoors too much outside of skiing, which I'm like really actually kind of pissed about that I didn't do, because Utah is such a beautiful state. Um, but I would say the last like 3 years that we lived in Salt Lake, we camped quite a bit. And now that like I'm in the industry, like a lot of the expos and a lot of the a lot of the things that I do now are like very outdoorsy based. Like last week I was in Colorado at a big camping expo, and you can actually camp at the location as being part of the expo. So like like I'm doing these things where like I'm going to these events and I'm camping, and I'm so yeah, now I'm like outdoors a lot more. Like next week I'm going to be camping, then the week after I'm going to be camping, and then I think I'm going to another big expo in October. So there's like always like these like outdoor expos or trade shows or events that are going on now. So I spend way more time now than I actually ever have.
Wow, so that's you're really becoming immersive in this entire
Oh yeah.
entire thing. Initially as a hobby, now it's your business. Are you? Is it a little bit taking? I don't know how to usually write how to frame it correctly. Are you losing a little bit of the passion for outdoors, being that now it's become a business, or do you find yourself leaning into it?
No, so like like the specific type of outdoors things that I do, it's called overlanding, which most people have never heard of. Just Google, anyone who's watching this, just Google overlanding rig, like 2 words, overlanding, and then rig. And it's like it originated in Australia, where people would go out into like the outback of Australia, and they would like drive on dirt roads for like days or weeks on end. Um, in the last like few years, it's actually gotten like pretty big in the U.S. But you have a tent that's like on top of your car, and you have like you have a stove, you have all these like amenities basically in your car, and it is actually like my kind of like outdoors thing. I love it, like because you kind of have like the amenities of being at home a little bit, but everything's in your car. And so um, I've like I actually like it more now, because I feel like I'm more prepared. I feel like I've got like I've got like a comfortable mattress. I've got like my stove. I've got all these like I have a solar panel that like when I'm camping, it charges a battery. I have an electric fridge in my car. So it's actually like much more. It's better now than it was when I was growing up. Even though it kind of is part of my job, I actually I enjoy it more now.
Cool. Now I know a little bit about your journey from LinkedIn, so I'll ask you. You expose too much, so I'll ask you questions based on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned you only recently left your full-time job to pursue
Hmm.
this full time. What was that transition like?
Well, now that I've left, I don't think my former boss is going to watch this, but um, I was probably working on Wildland 40 hours a week 6 months before I left my job. No, I was still doing my job, but like, nights, weekends, all that shit. If not more than 40 hours. So when I quit my job, nothing really, like, it was kind of the same, if I'm being honest. um, so yeah, like the transition was kind of like, it was way less eventful than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought I was going to have this like big epiphany and all this, like, I don't know, like nothing really changed, if I'm being honest. Well, that's not true. Like a lot of things changed, but like mentally nothing changed.
Interesting.
Financially things changed for sure. Um, but like, I've got a super supportive wife who pays my bills now. I always joke that I got really lucky because, well, we actually both joke that she actually came up with this joke. She goes, "Oh yeah, Zach, you got so lucky because I came with a house." Um, her parents, we live in the house she grew up in now, so we don't have a mortgage, which is nice. We don't pay rent. Her parents let us basically stay here for free. So it's not like if my business fails, I'm gonna like be homeless. Uh, so I'm very lucky in some ways. And I didn't know my wife was gonna come with a house. I just chose her, and she came with a house. So for anyone watching, choose someone that's gonna come with a house. It's nice.
That's cool. So you're at a point where you could really, between you and your wife, you're able to juggle the responsibilities to make
Yeah,
sure so you could be financially responsible.
yeah.
Do you, how relieved do you feel? Do you feel more relieved or more overwhelmed, or
More
is that what you're
overwhelmed.
saying? Oh, more overwhelmed.
More overwhelmed. I mean, I was just talking to another founder, like pretty early stage, or earlier than I am actually, like, and his product is like way different, but he's been developing it for like a year and a half. And this guy's got like a mortgage and two kids. That's like very different than, his kids go to like private school, right? So like he's in a very different situation than I am, where I don't have kids and I don't have a mortgage and I don't have any car payments. Like, I think this is it. I mean, I obviously, like, it wasn't like I necessarily intended to, like, because again, I didn't choose my wife because she was going to come with a home. But like, if there's one thing I would say to like a founder, it's like, make, like, live well within your means, because it's really hard. Well, I've never experienced this. I've heard it's hard to scale down on your lifestyle once you've got the Gucci bag and you're wearing the watches. Like, if you've got a Mercedes, it's like, yeah, have fun going from all that to like, Levi's and a Civic. So I definitely think that if anyone's like thinking about becoming a entrepreneur, like, live well within your means, because you're going to have to at some point. Um, so yeah, but the overwhelm for me is more about, as a solo founder, like everything falls on me. So it's about like managing my emotions and managing my mental state more so than it is like worrying that I'm going to miss a mortgage payment.
Got you. Another question that that's been percolating is: are you nervous that one of these big brands is just gonna copy you and rip you off?
It's fine.
Why is it
I
fine?
mean, I mean, there's nothing to worry about. Like, what am I going to do?
You're saying that's beyond your control, so it has nothing to do with you.
Beyond my control. 100%. Like, not only is it beyond my control, it will happen. And by the way, I'm not the first one to do this. So like, I have no leg to stand on and say, oh, they're copying me. Like, everyone copied someone else. There's no such thing as an original idea. Like, that's bullshit. um, and honestly, so like, Whole Foods recently came out with like their own version of my product. I would be stoked if some big company came out with their own tea bag product, because it would bring awareness to the format. That's what I need. I need someone to be aware of the format so they could start searching for it. So they could go on Amazon and search tea bag coffee. I need people to know that this is a thing. Like, I'd say only 2-3% of people that I talk to actually know that there's other companies that do this. Maybe it's 1% of people. Like, I'd be stoked. It'd be amazing.
Do you think focusing on the outdoors niche that you're able to build such strong brand loyalty that would negate those effects, so to speak, of a big brand coming in?
I mean, here's the thing: is like I believe in abundance. There's more than like I did some like kind of back of the napkin math, and this is data from 2016. There's roughly there's more now, but in 2016 there's roughly 770 million cups of coffee drank when people are camping per year. Like, there's, for me to like go where I want to go, like I need such a tiny fraction of those people. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm just so unconcerned with like someone trying to like do what I'm doing, because one, like, it'd be nice if there was some other competition that was educating people about the format, because then they're going to come to my company and they're going to be like, oh, this coffee's really fucking good, and they're probably going to go with me. And two, there's enough people out there that multiple companies can exist. I don't know, I'm just like, what am I going to do? Freak out about it? Like, I already have enough shit going on.
Cool. I want to discuss your current marketing strategy, which, again, I know a little bit about. Before that, I'm curious how you came up with the design for both the logo and the packaging.
So, I just worked with a graphic designer it was a referral from a friend. Really frustrated with that guy because he no longer does graphic design, and he had great prices. Well, I kind of told him what I wanted. I wanted to be kind of like outdoorsy. I wanted people to see it and like think, oh, I'm like outdoors. And he came up with the design. It cost me, it literally, my packaging cost me like $1,000 to design. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty awesome.
Cool. Do you have any you can show us, or?
Sorry, what?
Do you have any you can show us, or let me see if I could pull up your website quickly.
Let me see. That's funny. This is one of my first products ever. I still have it because it's nostalgic. Well, now, I mean, so you can see, my first version, it was.
There we see it now.
It was a sticker. So when someone would order, I had to put stickers on foil packages. That's how most food entrepreneurs start, is with stickers, because it's so much cheaper. Yeah. I mean, obviously now it's not like that, but like the design is still very similar. I described it for a long time as coffee in a tea bag, because it is like, when someone hears that, they can imagine in their head what the product is. The problem is like, people make the association with tea and they think it's going to be like watered down coffee, which it's not. So now on the packaging, it says single serve coffee bag, which it's not as descriptive. Both of them have pros and cons. You know.
I like the second one better. I feel like it. I feel like the first one has that issue.
Yeah.
One more question before we get into the marketing. I know this is getting long winded, but it's just so fast. I'm just fascinated by so much of this conversation. How did you find your roaster? There's more on the production side. How did you find your roaster and the and whatever packaging facility you use?
So the roaster was actually coincidental. When I first started my first coffee company, the owner of the roaster hit us up on Instagram and asked if we needed a roaster. Talk about serendipity, dude. And then the co-packer, just a Google search. Um,
How, how did you
yeah.
choose to go with that roaster? There's a million roasters out there. Just because he hit you up, how did you vet him, validate him, etc.?
I met the guy in person, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's cool. They have good prices. They have good coffee. All right, sounds good."
That sounds amazing.
That was it.
Cool.
Um, and then, so with the manufacturer, there's actually two companies in the U.S. that I know of that do this kind of very specific product. Um, the machines to do this product are again kind of specific, and you could like hack together a few machines to like do it, but there are machines that do like this very specific thing. They take the coffee, they put in the tea bag, they put the tea bag into like the wrapper, and then they do the nitro flushing.
I would
Um,
imagine that's not just for coffee. They do it for all sorts of teas.
well, the thing with tea, here's the funny thing. So there's a lot of companies that will that will do tea bags. The problem is those companies, though their machines, they don't do the nitro flushing because tea doesn't go bad. So they just don't need it. The other thing is like a lot of tea companies, they don't, you know, if you're doing like coffee and tea, you're always cleaning shit out. So it's just like,
I get it.
yeah, they just don't like to do both. So there's like two companies in the US that do this very specific product. I just Googled it, and one of the companies was here in San Diego. And so I said, all right, we'll work with you.
Very cool. How did you learn about the nitrogen process to begin with?
I think they just told me. They're like, oh, yeah, this is how we do it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Dude,
Okay.
I'm not like a coffee nerd. Like, even today, like, I mean, I know a lot about coffee, but like, compared to like my roasters, like, I know nothing compared to I'm like such an idiot compared to a lot of these coffee people. I think that is one of the things that gives me actually an advantage is because I'm not like obsessed with like making this perfect cup of coffee. Like it gives me more freedom and latitude to do things that other coffee entrepreneurs like would never do because it's like, disrespecting the coffee or something. Like I don't fucking care. I just want to give the consumers an awesome cup that's really convenient, whatever it takes.
Cool. Wow. That was pretty cool. I love how you found the roaster and you just vibed with him and you felt good about it. He had good prices. It worked. And you went for it. That's pretty cool. Was the first company that you launched with a business partner was the same product or was it a different product?
It's basically the same product. Yeah, we actually use the same roaster and the same manufacturer.
Got you. Do you see yourself getting into more and other products, or or do you see yourself doubling down on this specific product?
Well, we offer whole bean on the website. Um, one of the challenges I have in my business um, is my the average wildland consumer does not use my product on a very regular basis. So it makes for like long reorder times, and so because of that, like I have whole bean. So that way my consumers can, they can use, and it's the same coffee that goes into both, right? So then they can start to use Wildland, in their espresso machine, or, in their French press at home, or their pour overs, whatever. So yeah, like there's, like we're going into that. Could I do a instant coffee at one point? Maybe, perhaps. Um, and then there's other things that like I think we're gonna do in like the medium to long term future with, maybe like mushroom coffee, or CBD, or like maybe even THC once it's federally legal. So I think there's a lot of other like cool and interesting things that I could do, but I got my hands full with selling this shit right now.
Cool. When did you initially bring this Wildland brand to market? When was it available for orders? How long ago?
March of last year.
March of
So
last
it's
year.
been like a year and a half.
A year and a half. So now I want to transition to focus purely on your marketing strategy, your go-to-market strategy. How did you initially get your first few orders?
Oh, you know what? So this is another advantage of LinkedIn. So when I launched my first website, I had a virtual assistant go through my connections and ask like 400 people for feedback on like the website. The first version was like so bad. Like it read like a one-page blog. I just wanted it to be like so easy and simple. Um, and then people that thought that the concept was cool, then once I like had the product ready, I asked those people to go buy it and give me feedback on the product. So that's how I got like my first orders. And then I was posting on Instagram and stuff. I started an ambassador program. That was like my first kind of version of my marketing strategy. I Even today, I haven't spent a dollar on Facebook or Instagram. Everything's very organic. So like my first like marketing strategy was through micro influencers, and that didn't really work. Let me be honest. I still have like an ambassador program, but it's not the way it was before. Um, and then once I realized the ambassador thing wasn't really going to work, or work the way that I wanted it to, then we got big on Amazon, or started to focus on Amazon. Um, then we realized that there's not a ton of organic demand on Amazon for my type of product, and so it's not for the foreseeable future, it's not going to be a huge revenue stream for us. So we don't really focus too much on Amazon. Like it's there, and we get a decent amount of sales through it, but it's not like a huge part of the business. And then from there, we transitioned to small retailers, like independent shops, little like hospitality, tiny homes, like rentals, shit like that. And that was actually like pretty successful. The problem is like it's so hard to build a business with, $500 at a time. Like it's unreal difficult. So the last month or so, I've really been focusing on bigger accounts, like Camping World, and I'm not in any of these places yet, but just like bigger outdoor retailers, bigger hospitality chains, somewhere where I can get a $10,000 purchase order, a $50,000 purchase order. That's like really, that's I need something big to like really get me to where I want to go.
Cool. I'm gonna dive a little deeper, and I love how you remember the whole journey from your virtual assistant messaging 400 people about your website. Did you have in mind that once you message them about your website, you'll reach back out and ask them to buy the coffee?
No, that wasn't really the goal at first. It was literally just to get feedback, and then later I was like, well, I mean, there was a bunch of people that said that they liked it, they thought it was cool, so like might as well give them a discount code and see if they'll buy. Like it was, yeah. I think that's kind of a theme. Like going back to my personal brand is like I'm usually like not looking for things from people. Like I'm just here to have a good time. I'm just here to be Zach. So yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't like this like long-term strategy where I'm going to ask people for feedback that I'm going to ask them to buy. It's just the way it worked out.
What did the brand ambassador program entail?
So my first version was like they would get free product, like 10 pouches a month or something, and then they just have to post like one time a week on their story. It could just be like drinking my wildland, like basic, like really basic. Um, and like people just like didn't do what they said that they were gonna do, which kind of makes sense. And then, but also it's just like not a good way. It's just like an unscalable way to grow a business. It's so hard to manage, and Instagram like crushes your reach. So like, yeah, even if someone posted one time a week, maybe 200 people are going to see each post. Like it's just you're never going to get anywhere. So it was challenging.
And then Amazon, did you do paid ads or you just built a nice profile page?
Paid ads. Yeah, I used to spend a lot there. Now, I mean, last month I spent $500 on paid ads. Like,
Did you see a
and
return?
our number one keyword is the wildland keywords. So most of our sales are organic. And I mean, here's the thing. I know I could squeeze more out of it. The problem is like I'm not going to pay someone to do it because it's just like there's not that much there, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time there because again, there's not that much there. Like I might be missing out on something, but I'm not missing out on like $1 million. But fuck, I don't know. Maybe I am. I guess I can't say that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the last transition. Then you focus on stores. So I assume that your brand is relatively new. That means you are banging on doors. Is that how it
Oh
went?
yeah. Oh yeah. Like, and my career before this was in software sales, so I'm no stranger to like cold calling and cold emailing. And actually getting like smaller retail accounts, it was successful and it is successful. It's just really hard to grow a business one door at a time. Like you got to get like 50 doors at a time or like 100. And so, but now I'm realizing that going after these bigger accounts takes way longer. And so I need to do both. Like I have to be doing the big stuff and I have to be doing the little stuff. I can't just be doing one or the other. Because one of the things that's really hard as a solo founder, especially when you're small, is to continue your momentum and get a small win every single day. And when you're going after these bigger accounts, the wins are few and far in between. When they hit, right? But if you're not getting the small wins in between the big wins, it's like tiring and emotionally stressful, and you get worn down.
So it sounds like your current strategy is to continue doing the door knocking, both on the smaller accounts and the big accounts. Really turn that into a strategy yourself. Have you not looked into going with a broker? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so I actually did start working with an independent sales rep. Grocery is not a huge thing for me, because one, a lot of grocery require stocking or all the different fees. I don't have that money. The other thing is like I'm not that interested in competing with the 30 other coffee brands they have on the shelf. Like it's just not that interesting to me. So if I could go to an outdoor store and be like one of two brands, that's much more interesting.
I'm talking about a broker for an outdoor store.
Yeah. So I do have one that has like a select accounts, and then I'm talking to a few others that have connections as well. So that is definitely a strategy for me. We're still in the infancy there.
Well, we are on LinkedIn Live, so there's a lot of people always looking to build their professional careers. If anyone wants to bang on some doors and represent some great coffee,
Yeah,
reach out to Zach Frantz from Wildland Coffee. Just search Zach Frantz into the LinkedIn bar. And aside from following his great content, maybe something good could come out of this show.
that would be awesome.
The other thing that I'm curious about is I noticed you've been posting a lot about actually before that. I noticed you've been posting a lot about expo, specifically outdoor expo. So I'm curious how that's been doing. Before that, I know you said you didn't invest in so much in paid ads. It does seem like you do focus on both your Instagram feed and your LinkedIn feed. We spoke a lot about that in the beginning. Do you feel that, let's say, Instagram, I know LinkedIn doesn't really crush your reach for those transparent posts. Actually, people see those a lot. Does Instagram, is it worth it? Does Instagram also crush your reach?
Yeah, I mean, reels are better. Like traditional posts are challenging. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just like, the way that I've actually really grown my following, and I don't have like a huge following, maybe 4,500 people, pretty, pretty pedestrian, let's be honest. Is actually through giveaways with other brands, like much bigger brands. So that's been actually I just finished one this week, where I got 7,000 new people for my email list. So,
Wow.
and I probably got 500 new followers on Instagram. So,
And these are
um,
similar industries, so it's the right people.
oh yeah, I mean, I only do giveaways with other outdoor brands. So yeah, I mean they're by people, like they're 100% who I'm going after. Um, so yeah, there's yeah, I mean Instagram, yeah, they crush your reach. It is what it is. I am fairly active on TikTok, although I'm not like I'm not Martin Scorsese with a camera. Like I'm not like that good at it. So like I do what I can, but like for for anyone watching and listening, like TikTok is the future. So just be there now.
Have you seen sales off of it, or you're really building for the long term?
It's like a long term thing. It's hard to say. Like maybe someone went to Amazon. Like I'm sure I've gotten sales, but like I can't say I've seen. You hear brands that like go out of stock because of TikTok. Like that hasn't been me yet. No.
Now I want to talk about your expos. That seems to be, I know you've posted that you've actually done really well. It sounds like it's a tremendous amount of energy, but almost any expo you went to seems like it was a net profit based on that expo and a lot more than that. So I'm curious about that. I know you're very focused now on getting into stores, which is amazing. But how do you balance that? What do you see in terms of the expos? Which expos are you focusing on, and what are your thoughts on that process?
So the way I think about expos is like 50%, well, let's say 75% selling product, 25% meeting other brands. Brands being other product companies or retailers. Like, so, and I just go to B2C expos. Like the big ones for my people are, it's a series of them. It's called Overland Expo, and they have four throughout the country. The biggest one probably has 25,000 people. Like it's big. Um, and yeah, I mean, the first one I ever went to, we think we sold like $2,400. And when I say like the first expo, like we didn't have an awning, we didn't have a tablecloth, and we didn't have any signs. Like we were literally just selling from my friend's booth with a table. That's it. So the fact that we sold $2,400 of coffee, looking like we could have been serial killers, was pretty cool. Then the next one we went to was like way smaller, but we sold $2,600, so we were really happy about that. We got some signs. I brought my awning this time, and the last one that I went to this past weekend sold $4,400. And I think there's a few things that like went into that. One, like the spot we had. Again, I've never paid for a booth space. I always get a friend to allow me to sell from their booth. You got to be scrappy. I think one of the reasons, I think there's two reasons we sold so much. One, our space was right next to the entrance. So literally everybody walked past us. The other thing is probably 25 to 30% of the people that came up to the booth had already heard of Wildland, whether it was from a friend, Instagram, YouTube, or actually someone at the event. Like we had a lot of people on Saturday and Sunday say that one of their friends had told them about Wildland the day before at the event. So, I mean, dude, it's just about having a good product. Like that's a CPG thing. It's like you can have a shitty brand and you can have a shitty strategy, but if your product rocks, like people are going to tell people about good products. You can't like, if you have a lot of money, you can have a cool product for a little bit and people will buy it. I mean, this is like, again, the plant-based meat thing, they burn a ton of money. So they get a lot of customers. Are those people coming back? And by the way, like I'm like pro, like not killing animals, but like the fact of the matter is like their products just aren't that good. And so you just have to have a good product that people want to tell their friends about.
Did the expo have other coffee there? Did they serve coffee?
No, actually.
Oh,
I think we were the only coffee company at the whole place. And there's probably 350 vendors.
Most expos have someone serving coffee, so make sure you always keep the exclusivity on that.
Yeah, you know, at these ones, like they have like food vendors for like lunch and stuff, but actually, I don't think they had like, you know, they've got like food trucks, right? I don't think they had a coffee truck. If I'm being honest, I don't think they did. So, but it's like most food companies don't go to these things because they're not specific enough. Like most food brands will go to farmers markets, and then when it comes to expos, they go to like Expo West or Expo East, you know, which are like, you know, the fancy food show, right? They're like going to these B2B expos. I think that's what makes us a little bit different, is like my strategy is different. So I'm putting Wildland in a place where there's just not a lot of competition because most coffee companies are trying to sell you at the grocery store.
Cool. Now, when you sold the coffee at those expos, did you make it easy for people to have the coffee there? Did you have hot water there? Did you have cups there?
So what we do is we give out samples, like a little 1 ounce sample. We're not selling like a whole cup of coffee. So we give out a small sample. And we have like a couple of jet boils, and then we make the coffee in like mugs, and then we just pour it. So yeah, we like give out a small sample, and then I don't know, we probably have a 25% close rate, maybe even a little higher. And you know, we'll sell 10 pouches for $20, so $2 a cup, or we do 40 for 50, so $1.25.
And that's pretty cool. And what was the reason that you started so scrappy? You didn't even bring a sign at the first one. Were you just trying to stress test it?
So the first one, me and a friend went. I have one of my really good friends from college. He comes with me to a lot of these events. Good guy, just wants to help out. Our plan was just to like walk around and network and like give people free samples. Like we would just give them our plan in our heads, like, okay, we're just gonna go give people a pouch. Okay. On my drive there, I'm driving there. One of my friends calls me, a guy that I had met at another expo that I was just like walking around. And I met this guy, he owned a company. He calls me and he was like, hey dude, do you want to just like sell your coffee from my booth? We're like in the car on the way there. And I was like, well, fuck yeah. Like, I don't have any, I just have my coffee. Like, is that cool? And he's like, yeah, dude, just like, we have a table for you, just like set up. So we did it and we sold a bunch of product.
That's awesome.
So then like the next event, I had met a guy at another expo I had been walking around at. And I was like, I called him. I was like, hey dude, like, can I just like set up a table at your booth? And he was like, yeah, we actually got a double. So like, just bring your awning and just like set up like right next to us. It looked like we had our own booth, and I gave him like $400 or something. I gave him like 10% of our sales. No, it was, I don't know, like 15% of our sales or something. And then this last one, someone I had met a long time ago, they were going to be there, and we've done giveaways and stuff together. It's actually, they make French presses, actually, ironically, but we're friends. I was like, hey man, can I like set up a table at your booth? And he's like, yeah, dude, just like bring a table, sure. So we did it.
That's cool. So it sounds like there are really two things you're focusing on: getting into every store, big or small, doing that process. You are happy to work with brokers who are to get into those stores, specifically in the outdoors world, specifically
Yeah.
in overlanding. You gave us a great overview on that, and the expo sounds like you're rocking the expos. You're happy to give any place a great experience that all their vendors, all their consumers will have the ability to try out great coffee. At this point, you're building a brand with an audience. Maybe even the social media will be great for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool. Did I miss anything about your journey, your product?
No, just it's hard. Just one foot in front of the other.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to thank the audience. This has organically went to over an hour and a half, which is amazing. It was a ton of fun. Thank you so much. This is episode 15 of the Brand Spotlight. We interview brands, as you heard today, all about what their product and services, what they're uniquely bringing to the marketplace, and then we transition to both their origin story and how they originally brought it to the market, and how it has evolved to their current go-to-market strategy. We try to do this all in a very conversational format. We stream live on YouTube, LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and we are replayed or re-available. I don't know how to say that, as an audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. Before we leave, I will say that Zach has been gracious enough to offer the show an affiliate code. That means we get a little bit of commission off anything you order, and you get a discount with Spotlight 15. That's wildlandcoffee.co. Did I get that?
Mm-hmm.
Wildlandcoffee.co. Use Spotlight 15 at checkout. Zach, thank you so much. Do you have any parting words, and where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Zach France. It says right there how you spell my
It's going to
name.
be Adios also. So the Zach is
Oh,
spelled Z-A-C-H, and France is F-R-A-N-T-Z. I'll repeat
yep,
that in case you didn't catch that. Zach as in is Z-A-C-H, and France is F-R-A-N-T-Z.
correct. Yep. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, or check out our company at wildlandcoffee.co.
Thank you.